John Sangwa bombshell drop. HH can't fix Zambia, even with a second term. Why is that? Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. You know, we've had quite the week here in Lusaka. The rains have been unpredictable, the power situation. Well, we'll get to that. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared us for what dropped this past Friday. Our lead story today concerns a man who has spent 30 years defending Zambia's constitution. A man who stood against Chiluba, who challenged Mwanawasa, who confronted Rupia Banda, who defied Michael Sata, and who ultimately helped bring down Edgar Lungu. A man who, just months ago, praised President Hakainde Hichilema for resisting the temptation that had consumed every leader before him. The temptation to manipulate the constitution for personal gain. That man is John Sangwa, State Counsel. And on Friday, on Phoenix FM's Let the People Talk, he dropped a bombshell that has sent shockwaves through the corridors of power in Lusaka. Picture this, the very constitutional lawyer who fought alongside the UPND to defeat Bill 10, who celebrated when Hichilema took office in 2021, who wrote glowing letters praising the new president's commitment to constitutional integrity, now declares that President Hichilema cannot resolve Zambia's challenges. Not in his remaining time. Not even if given a full second term. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. Sangwa didn't just criticize policy. He didn't just point to failures in the energy sector or the economy. He went deeper. Much deeper. He accused the president of the very sin he once praised him for avoiding. Attempting to manipulate the constitution. Of betraying not just his trust, but the trust of millions of Zambians who voted for change. So what happened? What transformed a supporter into perhaps the government's most dangerous critic? When did the honeymoon end? And more importantly, if a man like Sangwa, with all his legal brilliance and 3 decades of constitutional advocacy, believes Zambia cannot be fixed by this administration, what does that mean for the 19 million souls who call this nation home? Why would a constitutional heavyweight who rejected offers from traditional funders of politics, his words, suddenly emerge not just as a critic, but as a potential presidential candidate himself? What did he see? What does he know? And why is the UPND, with all its parliamentary majority and state machinery, seemingly panicking at the mention of his name? Is this about one man's wounded pride, as some government officials suggest? Or have we just witnessed the beginning of a reckoning that could reshape Zambian politics before the 2026 elections? The revelation came to light on Friday, October 31st, 2025, during what should have been a routine appearance on Phoenix FM's popular Let the People Talk program. John Sangwa, 60, is no ordinary political commentator. Born in Mansa on December 29, 1964, the son of civil servant Davies Sangwa from Winalunga District, John Sangwa earned his bachelor's and master's in law from the University of Zambia and received advanced trial advocacy training at the University of Southern California. For over 30 years, he has been Zambia's constitutional conscience, the lawyer who lectured at UNZA's School of Law, who chaired media law reform committees, who co-founded the Legal Resources Foundation. But the timeline of his relationship with President Hichilema tells a story of hope, then disillusionment, and now, open confrontation. August 2024 marked the beginning. In early August, President Hichilema issued a statement promising Zambians he had no plans to alter the constitution. He criticized what he called the distorted narrative being peddled by the opposition, and vowed to uphold and defend the constitution. Sangwa responded with a letter of commendation. He praised Hichilema for what he called a radical departure from 60 years of constitutional manipulation by every previous leader since independence. September 13, 2024, everything changed. During his annual address to Parliament, President Hichilema made off-the-cuff remarks that shocked observers. He announced that Zambia needed constitutional reform to address lacunae, omissions, or oversights. Then came the threat: we could have no elections for 8 or 9 years. That is not a joke. The implications were immediate. 11 opposition parties had already written to the government in October 2023, warning against what they called secretive efforts aimed at amending the Republican Constitution. They criticized requests for recommendations on so-called non-contentious issues, calling the process non transparent, December 2024 through June 2025, the Bill 7 controversy erupted. The government introduced the Constitution of Zambia, Amendment, Bill No. 7, proposing what critics called sweeping changes. Sangwa held a public forum, calling the bill fundamentally flawed. He accused the Technical Committee on Constitutional Reform of betraying the public. The bill, he argued, would strip voters of power by allowing political parties, not citizens, to fill parliamentary vacancies. July 2025. The personal became political. On July 2nd, appearing on Millennium Tonight, Sangwa made a declaration that sent shockwaves through the UPND. For me, he is not getting my vote along with a member of parliament. For me, he has betrayed me. He elaborated, I did not vote for President Hichilema so he could change the constitution, but to improve the social and economic status of the country. The government's response was swift and, frankly, bizarre. UPND leaders attacked everything from Sangwa's accent to his marital status to his nationality. Mines Minister Paul Kabuswi told him, Zambians won't fund your ambitions. Lusaka Province UPND chairperson Obvious Mwalateta declared Sangwa must first get a wife before standing as president, despite Sangwa being married. October 2025. The political transformation accelerated. Sangwa announced the formation of the Movement for National Renewal, MNR, initially as a civic organization with plans to transform into a political party. He gave interviews rejecting offers from traditional political funders, insisting that if he ran for president, his campaign would be funded by ordinary Zambians. Then came Friday, October 31st, 2025. The Phoenix FM interview. And the bombshell that has dominated headlines ever since. Let me take you inside that Phoenix FM studio. John Sangwa, in his characteristic measured tone, speaking to the Let the People Talk audience. These are his words, quoted from the broadcast and subsequent press coverage. On President Hichilema's ability to transform Zambia. President Hakainde Hichilema can never transform the nation, even if he was to be given a second term of office. Pause for emphasis. He didn't hedge. He didn't qualify. Can never. Those were his exact words. He continued. Zambians have lost trust in the head of state and the UPND administration. The country has been divided. On constitutional violations. President Hichilema is not respecting the rule of law and the Constitution, as evidenced in proceeding with the amendments. When pressed about the constitutional reform process, Sangwa grew more pointed. The constitutional reform process is flawed. Members of the Technical Committee on Constitutional Reform have betrayed the public by agreeing to serve on the consulting team. He then made a stunning allegation. The amendment process is being designed to give the ruling UPND an electoral advantage in 2026. From his earlier interviews, Building the Case. On Diamond TV's Costa program just days earlier, Sangwa addressed the question of political experience, a line of attack UPND officials had been using against him. I have heard this talk about experience. No, you lack experience, and so forth. My answer is very simple. Where has that experience taken us in 60 years? What is the outcome of that political experience that people market? He continued, his voice rising with passion. No, you don't need political experience or civil service experience to be a good president. You just need to be a good leader. On democracy and foreign funding. From his call to national reflection statement, which triggered the UPND's panic. A democracy paid for by outsiders tends to serve their interests, not ours. A democracy bought by money. Lenders and power brokers will never be free. But if we fund it ourselves, through our taxes, our institutions, and our civic commitment, then it will reflect our values, protect our sovereignty, and secure our children's future. On his personal decision, from the July interview, when asked directly about his vote in 2026, Sangwa didn't hesitate. For me, he is not getting my vote along with a member of parliament. For me, he has betrayed me. I don't know about others. The interviewer pressed him, but you voted for him in 2021? I did not vote for President Hichilema so he could change the constitution, but to improve the social and economic status of the country. Politicians must know that bad decisions have consequences, but Zambians are at liberty to make their own decisions. His analysis of Bill 7 from the public forum. The same way Bill 10 was rejected under President Lungu for undermining constitutionalism, Bill 7 should be rejected. We cannot apply double standards. He then detailed his specific objections. Bill 7 proposes sweeping changes that undermine democratic safeguards, silence voters, and centralize power. It seeks to strip voters of power by allowing political parties and not citizens to fill parliamentary vacancies. This is a direct attack on electoral sovereignty and voter choice. On the terms of reference for constitutional reform. Speaking on Diamond TV, he called the entire process into question. The terms of reference for the Technical Committee on Constitutional Amendment are a scam. His vision for political funding. I have rejected offers from the traditional funders of politics. I want Zambians to provide funding. If I needed money, I would rather ask Zambians to contribute K100 than go to foreigners who would later dictate policies. So what are we really witnessing here? Is this about constitutional amendments, or is this about something far deeper? A fundamental crisis of governance and trust? The constitutional question. John Sangwa's critique centers on what he sees as a betrayal of constitutional principles. But to understand the gravity, we need context. In August 2024, Sangwa wrote to President Hichilema, "Since independence in 1964, all your predecessors either initiated or continued the process to make a new constitution or amend the constitution. Their motivation, invariably, was the desire to use the constitution as a political tool to further their personal benefits. It is laudable that you have so far not succumbed to this temptation." Just 1 month later, Hichilema announced constitutional reforms were coming. The opposition had already been warning about this. 11 parties, including the Patriotic Front, had written in October 2023 about secretive efforts to amend the constitution. They questioned why people were being asked for recommendations only on non-contentious issues, with no clear criteria for what counted as non-contentious. Former President Edgar Lungu, who himself had pushed through a controversial constitutional amendment in 2016, urged Zambians in July 2024 to oppose and stop President Hichilema from taking Zambia back to autocracy and tyranny through these UPND arbitrary schemes to alter our constitution only to suit their agenda. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Lungu, criticized for his own constitutional manipulations, now warning against the very thing he'd done. The UPND's reaction, revealing panic? The government's response to Sangwa has been, by any measure, extraordinary. When a sitting mines minister feels compelled to respond to a constitutional lawyer's statement about democratic funding, something is clearly amiss. Academic and political commentator Sishwa noted the strangeness. How does it fall under the responsibility of the country's Minister of Mines to respond to Sangwa's call for Zambians to fund their democracy? The attacks have been personal, often bizarre, and sometimes demonstrably false. Claims that Sangwa is Congolese. He was born in Mansa, both parents Zambian. Demands that he reveal which primary school he attended. Criticism of his accent. False claims that he's not married. Allegations that he's a staunch PF cadre, despite his public battles with the Lungu administration. Sishwa observed, "Why are UPND leaders panicking when it comes to Sangwa? The default position of UPND leaders is to speak confidently even on matters on which they are totally ignorant, rather than asking questions so that those in the know can cure their repulsive ignorance." The broader political implications. Opposition figures have seized on Sangwa's statements. Mporokoso PF MP Brian Mundable argued that President Hichilema should have admitted that he has failed in the energy sector, in the agriculture sector, in the economy, in the fight against corruption. They have failed in almost all the sectors. PF presidential aspirant Willa Mutalo took a different approach, arguing, President Hakainde Hichilema is not a bad person except he did not just prepare to address Zambia's problems. Zambia needs a ready-made leader with a transformational national program to take over in 2026. Democratic Union leader Akim Jovu blamed the opposition itself. Some Zambians have lost confidence in the opposition because they continue to focus on recycled political figures instead of considering new leaders and emerging parties with alternative solutions. The trust deficit. Sangwa's core argument, that Zambians have lost trust in President Hichilema, touches on something deeper than policy failures. It's about promises made and broken, about the gap between campaign rhetoric and governing reality. The UPND swept to power in 2021 on promises of change, transparency, and constitutional integrity. President Hichilema won with 59.02% of the vote, the highest turnout in Zambian history. People voted for the man who'd been arrested on questionable treason charges, who'd been tear-gassed in his own home, whose penis had been pepper-sprayed in detention. They voted for the underdog who promised to be different. Now, critics argue, he's pursuing the same constitutional manipulations as his predecessors. Whether that's true or not, the perception is damaging. The economic context. Sangwa's statement that HH cannot resolve Zambia's challenges must be understood against economic realities. Zambia has experienced severe load shedding, with some areas without power for 12 to 18 hours daily. President Hichilema himself acknowledged in recent weeks that both government and the nation had failed in the energy sector. The high cost of living remains a pressing concern. Farmers continue to go unpaid for their produce. The IMF-supported economic restructuring, while praised internationally, has been felt painfully by ordinary Zambians. Government supporters point to free education, constituency development funds, and debt restructuring as achievements. Critics counter that these don't address the fundamental challenges facing the nation. The question of alternatives. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Sangwa's statement is the implicit question. If the current administration cannot fix Zambia's problems even with a second term, who can? Sangwa himself appears to be positioning for a presidential run in 2026. His movement for national renewal is gathering momentum. His insistence on citizen-funded campaigns rather than traditional donor money has struck a chord with some Zambians tired of foreign interference in their politics. But is Zambia ready for a constitutional lawyer with no prior political experience to take the presidency? Or is Sangwa's very lack of political baggage his greatest asset? Legal and procedural questions. The Law Association of Zambia, LAZ, has weighed in, with President Lungasani Zulu calling the deferral of Bill 7 commendable and a positive development. But deferral isn't withdrawal. The bill could return. Sangwa argues that deferral does not answer the constitutional violations already committed by advancing the bill and does not resolve the breach of public trust that its process represents. This raises a crucial question. Can constitutional legitimacy be restored once it's been damaged? Or has the trust between the government and the governed been irreparably broken? International dimensions. Zambia's constitutional struggles are being watched regionally and internationally. The country has long been seen as a beacon of democratic stability in southern Africa. Peaceful transfers of power, competitive elections, and a relatively free press have been hallmarks of Zambian democracy. If Zambia descends into the kind of constitutional manipulation that has plagued other African nations, the regional implications could be significant. And if, as Sangwa suggests, Zambia's problems cannot be fixed by the current administration, what does that mean for economic recovery, debt servicing, and international partnerships? So there you have it, viewers. John Sangwa's bombshell. A declaration that has sent the corridors of power into something between panic and rage. The claim that President Hakainde Hichilema will not fix Zambia's challenges, even if given a second term. We've walked through the timeline. We've heard Sangwa's words in his own voice. We've examined the reactions, the implications, and the deeper questions this raises about Zambian democracy. But now comes the most important part. What do you think? Is John Sangwa right? Has President Hichilema betrayed the constitutional principles he once championed? Or is this, as some government supporters claim, simply the wounded pride of a man who sought appointment and didn't receive it? Can any single administration truly transform a nation in just 5 years, or 10? Or are Zambia's challenges so deep, so structural, that they require something beyond conventional politics? And perhaps most critically, if the current government cannot fix Zambia's problems, who can? Is Sangwa himself the answer? Or is he, like so many before him, simply another voice promising change while the fundamental problems remain? These are not abstract questions. The 2026 elections are just months away. Voter registration is underway. Campaigns will soon begin in earnest. And the choices Zambians make next year will determine not just who occupies State House, But what kind of nation Zambia becomes? Will it be a nation where the constitution is sacred, unchangeable except through genuine consensus? Or will it join the long list of African countries where leaders manipulate founding documents to maintain power? Will it be a nation where trust between government and governed can be rebuilt? Or has that trust been so damaged that only wholesale change, a complete clearing of the political deck, can restore it? Thank you so much for watching this edition of InspirAfrica Official. Your engagement, your comments, your shares,